center offering opportunities to nurture the mind, heal the body, and awaken the spirit. It is a safe place for the curious to develop spirituality through education, communication, and shared experiences of meditation, lectures, seminars, workshops, and publications. Any announcements? Anyone wants to share? Um, Next weekend, next Sunday, we have Kim Kyler visiting us. And she does amazing sound work. So I'm looking forward to seeing Kim. We'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. Let's see a new face, possibly. I'm Lisa. This is Matt.
Lisa, Chris,
Jack,
Patty.
Cassie, Mary, Nancy, and Ann.
Hi, Ann.
hi, Casey.
Casey's back there. Please be respectful of other people's opinions while you're here. Keep comments on point. Everyone has the right to be heard. Please keep a standard of confidentiality. Do not interrupt others. And please silence your cell phone. I hear the door. Someone. What's your name? Hi, Jessica. Welcome. So, without further ado, Barb, our speaker today, who will be speaking on past life regression, is going to offer us a meditation to start our program today.
All right. Okay. First, I'd like for you to close your eyes and start focus on your breathing. Take some deep, slow breaths. Don't force them. Just notice how the breath goes in and out of the lungs deeply. And when you breathe out, make that breathing out just a little bit longer. And that will relax you further. Now I want you to imagine that there's a big ball of bright light above your head, maybe about 5 feet or so, above your aura. This light is divine love, divine grace, divine joy, divine wisdom, divine peace. This light is going to move through your body very slowly, bringing you all those qualities of joy, peace, love, wisdom. But first, I want you to take a look at this light with your inner eye and notice how it swirls around. Notice how it moves. Some of you may see sparkles. Some of you may see different colors. Some of you may see white or golden. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you want this light to be, whatever you imagine it to be. Now imagine it slowly moving down from above, kind of intersecting with your aura. And as it does so, it fills your aura with this beautiful light so that you're bathed in it, cocooned in it. Just feel that for a few moments. You may feel tingly or not. It's okay if you don't. Then allow this light to move further down, starting to move into your head. Allow it to move into your head slowly and fill up all the cells of your skin, your brain, your nose, your mouth, your teeth, your ears, and all the spaces in between. Allow it to move slowly down your neck and into your shoulders. When it moves into your shoulders, you can feel yourself relax even further. Let it continue down your arms and all the way to your hands and fingertips, filling up all those muscles, the bone tissue, the blood. Then allow this light to come down further into your chest, filling up your heart and your lungs so that every breath you take contains this beautiful light. Allow it to fill up your heart. And as it fills up your heart pumps this blood throughout your entire body, bringing this healing light to every cell. Allow it to keep moving down into your abdomen, all the organs of your abdomen, the spaces in between, filling those with beautiful, healing, calming, peaceful light. You can already feel your frequency raising, your vibration getting higher, feeling more peaceful and joyful. Allow it to continue moving down your legs, your thighs, your knees, your calves and shins, down into your ankles, filling up your feet, your toes, coming to rest at the bottoms of your feet. And at the bottoms of your feet, there are these foot chakras. Just intend that you're opening up these foot chakras to allow two streams of light to go down into the floor, the basement, down into the earth below, connecting with Mother Earth. You can allow these two streams or beams of light to go as far down into Mother Earth as you want to. Then imagine that these two streams of light are forming roots made of light, roots that are branching out in all different directions throughout Mother Earth, connecting with her more fully, feeling her energy. I'd like to give thanks to Mother Earth at this point for all that she gives us. She gives us everything we need for life. Now feel Mother Earth loving you back and sending her energy up through those roots, up through the columns of light, back into your feet, your legs, up your torso, your shoulders, arms, hands, neck, head. Now you're connected to the divine and Mother Earth, which grounds you and uplifts your energy, helping you feel more peaceful, calm, loving, joyful. Now focus on this energy in your heart. Focus on your heart. Watch the energy from the earth and the sun and the divine mingle together in your heart and watch your heart expand and grow and watch that light and energy intensify and expand so that it not only fills your body, but it fills your aura. Now expand it out into this room so that all of our energies are mingled together as one, sending out love to each other. Now you can expand this further. You can expand this love, this healing light further into the city of Canton, continuing on to the United States, It surely does need some love right now. Just imagine this beautiful healing light and energy from Mother Earth touching every person in the United States, healing them as much as they will accept it, and continuing on to the rest of the earth, enveloping the entire earth and its peoples, its animals and plants, its minerals, its waters, and divine healing and love. I'll let you just imagine that for a few moments before we come back. When you're ready to come back, first focus on your breathing. Once more, take some slow, deep breaths, coming back into this room slowly, back to sitting in your chair. And after you've taken a couple deep breaths, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Everybody want to go to sleep now? I love that meditation. I feel so connected and so joyful after I do that. Should I just go into my talk, or was there something else you wanted to say?
Um, well, everyone here knows Barb. If you don't, this is Barb Costelloe, and she'll be speaking about past life regression. So,
Okay.
welcome, Barb.
Thank you. And there are a lot of faces I haven't met before, so I'm glad I've given this talk before, and I try to vary it every time. So I apologize if you've heard it before, but I'll try to add some new elements to it. Um, First of all, uh, I want to explain how I got started in past life regression. It really started in high school when I got interested in reincarnation. And I was very blessed to have a mother that I was best friends with. We shared all of our ideas. We shared our emotions. We helped each other throughout our lives. She just passed a couple of years ago, and it was very difficult. But fortunately, I'm so glad to feel her presence a lot, and I actually feel her right now, sitting right here with me. Um, we That interest led down many paths, and we got our family, which with my father, my brother, and my sister, interested in some of these spiritual things. Not quite as much as we were, but interested enough to pursue a lot of different things. And as a family, we did pursue a lot of different avenues. Um, One of them ended up being a chance happening upon a book in a bookstore by this organization called Religious Research. This was in the mid 70s. Gives you an idea of how old I am. That's when I was in college. And it was a book on reincarnation and past lives. And we had read other books on it. We read the Casey books and a few others on it. There weren't a whole lot in the 70s to read back then. Now there's so much out there. But that led us to getting some life readings. The book was about the life readings, where a man channels through information from a spirit guide called Dr. John, and he talked about the past lives of the individual getting the reading. So, hi, Ron. You've heard this before.
Sorry, it's good to hear you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's affirmation. Okay, so we ended up getting life readings and learning about some of our past lives. And it took us on a much larger journey than that. My mom and dad ended up getting divorced. And then my mom and I went out to California where she met Franklin, the head of this religious research that did these past life readings, and she ended up working for him the rest of her life. She ended up helping with the channelings, writing books, and I brought some of the books over here because a lot of wonderful information came through those channelings that people would get individual readings about. And we would also do uh, some readings just for people to ask questions, general questions. There's actually some information in there that I haven't heard in other places, but it all parallels with all the other stuff that you can read now. Okay, now how did I get into past life regression? Well, the way Franklin started the organization for doing life readings was in the 50s, in the 1950s, when it was basically unheard of to do past life regression. He was a minister and he was a scientist. In his counseling with people, he was researching all different ways and all different ways that most people didn't really want to hear about, basically. So it was pretty hush hush what he did. He did past life regressions for a lot of his parishioners. And that's how it started. It's when he would do that, one of the people he gave past life regression to, he gave a number of sessions to, and she ended up channeling spontaneously this entity that calls himself Dr. John. And that's how the life reading started. He spent many years testing the information before he actually offered it to the public. And it, before he died, he and this woman, he ended up taking over the channeling, channeled somewhere around 5,000 life readings. So there's a voluminous information. And when my mom married him, I became his stepdaughter. So I have all these life readings in a storage unit somewhere. Um, but he also was very interested in researching aspects of religion through science because he had been trained as a scientist before he became a minister. So he did some experiments of the power of prayer on plants. And he actually published this information. It was a best-selling book in the 1950s. I have an old copy of it there, but I do have a lot of copies if anybody's interested in buying and reading it. It's fascinating. It was really the very first research that was ever done on something like that. Since then, there's been a lot more that has been done. So that is what really interested me because I was trained as a scientist as well. I was trained as a botanist. I have like 3 or 4 degrees in different things because I've always been interested in the scientific aspects of spirituality. So, okay, you have to excuse me. I have these cards to keep me on track here because I tend to go off on tangents. Okay, so one of the things he did besides the research and besides the life readings is he developed his own method of past life regression back in the 1950s, as I started to say. And he had seminars in the 70s and 80s teaching other people past life regression. Well, that's how I learned it. Only he didn't call it that. He called it psychography. He liked that term better because he didn't like the word regression. He felt like it implied that you were becoming less than what you really are. He likes psychography because is the personality and graphing is mapping. So it maps the forces of the personality. That's the way he looked at it. Um, he actually started with, he wasn't a psychologist himself, but he started an organization called the American Psychographical Association, which is now defunct. Probably nobody living that still does it, with a group of psychologists that promoted this and also helped teach this method of past life regression that he called psychography. Another name that he called it was reverie recall. He believed that you shouldn't need to go to the very deep, uh, like hypnosis states because you don't remember and you don't interact as much with that information that you're recalling. uh, way back in the 50s, the very few people that were doing past life regression were going into very, very deep levels of hypnosis and coming up with remarkable things, but it didn't really help their own growth because they couldn't really interact with it quite as much. So he liked the process of not going quite as deep, going into the alpha state, maybe the I if I get it wrong, I don't remember. I learned hypnosis, but I don't remember these states. Alpha, I think the theta state is the deeper one. Um, and sometimes you can get there, but through that process. But okay, I'm losing my train of thought. Um, Help me get back there. Okay, yeah, okay. So he developed it as a method that would get you into a lighter state of hypnosis. He didn't call it hypnosis, and really you don't use the methods for his methods. But so I took the course mainly just because I just wanted to be with my mom and my spiritual friends, and I also wanted to start doing it myself. And uh, as a result, my mom and I would do a lot of this psychography with each other, and I learned a lot about myself. Um, I recalled somewhere around 50 of my past lives. 44, I have them recorded and just notes written about them, not actually recorded. But I know there were a lot more that I didn't even take notes on. All right, let's see. Okay, this all happened while my mom was working with Franklin in religious research, writing a number of books. Um, she wrote a number of books from the teachings that would come through these channelings, and I brought some of those books here. I have all of them for sale because along with all these life readings, I inherited all the books that they sold. I don't, I have, there's a website that talks about these books and religious research, but I don't promote it at all. I don't actually really know what to do with all this information. I'm hoping someday I will. Um, but okay, let's skip forward to 2012 when at that point I had done so much past life regression that I spontaneously started channeling myself. And that's something else I haven't really talked about and I don't really publicize either. But I'm kind of getting to the point where I feel like I need to because a lot of really interesting information is coming through. And shortly after that, a lot of things happened in 2012. If you guys remember 2012, it seemed like there were a lot of personal growth changes happening, a lot of different turnarounds spiritually. And I started getting the nudge from spirit to start offering past life regression professionally. I resisted this for a few years because I was frankly afraid of just not doing it right. It was that imposter syndrome. So I practiced a lot on friends for free, and I got their feedback, and I learned some more. I learned some more about past life regression, read a lot of books, and started getting started getting my feet wet in it so that I felt a lot more confident. And by 2017, I felt a lot more confident and I was doing it a lot more. And don't ask me how many I've done because I've never counted them. Just do them. Okay, I added some hypnosis techniques to Franklin's techniques because I noticed some people were able to get into that state really easily to recall a past life. Um, but there were others that weren't, and I just wasn't successful with them. So I learned some hypnosis techniques in order to, and I can say at this point for the last, I don't know, 5 or 8, maybe 8 years, I haven't had to turn away anybody because they couldn't get anywhere with the past life regression. They always recall something. It just takes a while because there's a lot of people that are left brained and really kind of stuck in their mind and thinking about things. And in order to do this successfully, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people come to me that are, and I'm one of them. It took me a while to actually get into a past life. And sometimes it still does, although I haven't had a regression since my mom died since in 5 years or so. But so some people need to be able to let go of that thinking and have a much harder time doing it. The key to doing this past life regression really is letting go of your doubts and your mind and just trusting the process and not worrying about whether what you're recalling is really real or not, because it may not be all real, but it always has something to teach you. That's the main thing to know about it. Okay, and this brings me to the past life regression process. What I do is start out with a just a body relaxation exercise, just to get you in a relaxed state. A lot of people come to me nervous, saying, I'm so scared of what's going to come out. So you have to get them relaxed first. Then I take them on a meditation. Sometimes it's like the one I just did for you this morning. And that gets them in touch with their higher selves and gets them grounded so that they can receive the information. And then I take them on a journey, and that journey gradually turns into their past life. I start asking them questions to see if they're tapped in. And if they're tapped in, I have methods for letting them take over. Uh, and from then on, the past life regression unfolds there. Um, and all I'm doing is just guiding the client with open-ended questions about what they're experiencing, what they're seeing, what they're feeling. And everybody's different. Some people are more can visualize and see things. Some people just simply have an inner knowing and may not see things at all. Some people smell or taste or actually feel things in their body. So everybody has a different method, a different manner of tapping into a past life. And we try to explore those different ways of doing it if they're not immediately apparent. When I feel like this past life they've remembered as much as they need to remember to pick up on what they need to learn about it, then I will ask them questions of their higher self, of their inner knower, which is also the higher self. Ask them why this lifetime was brought to them at this time, what it is they needed to learn from it. Most of the time, people know immediately. Other times, I have to kind of ask further questions. Um, but we never end without seeing what happens at death, seeing if they can go through the death experience and afterlife. Some people can, some people can't. Some people it's just not relevant. So I go through the process of finding out how this relates to their present life. Did they know anybody in this life that was in their past life? How it relates to that relationship? It totally depends on what past life they've recalled, what they've recalled, what is important about that life as to what questions I ask. Sometimes a healing is needed. Sometimes there are emotions that come up. I don't want to just leave that client sitting in that emotion and going home feeling that way. So I go through some different processes to heal those emotions, to turn around that person's thinking so that they're looking at it in a different way, so that it can be processed. All the information can be processed and integrated with this life. And sometimes I use Reiki techniques for that too, which can be very, very successful. Now, person can recall a myriad of different things. There's Most people will recall just one life and go through different aspects of that life. And usually it's something like a relationship or an experience. And I'll talk more about the different things that you can recall in a past life in a few moments. Always during that life, I ask the gender. You can be male or female. I ask, once they've gotten into that past life, I ask, what year is it? Where are you located on the Earth? Or sometimes it's on another planet, actually. I've had several of those. And your relationships along the way, if you know a person in your present life, um, and we discuss their personality, the emotions that come up. So those are always touched on. Quite often, people will recall more than one lifetime. it's usually because there is more than one lifetime that where a person is learning a similar theme. Um, and you want to learn it from different points of view. You want to learn it from different personalities so that you see something in a different from a different point of view. And let me give you some examples of that. For instance, uh, uh, some soul might want to examine what power is like, what it's like to feel power or wealth in a lifetime. Um, to experience it more, you need to experience the opposite of that. What it's like to feel powerless, what it's like to be ruled or oppressed, what it's like to be poor. Everybody has lifetimes looking at the same thing from different perspectives. And often these occur in cycles of three, so that you're looking at the first two lives, you're looking at the two different aspects of that. Um, and then the third life, you're integrating both of them. You can see both aspects and integrate both. For instance, um, it's still dealing with that power and wealth theme. You might be a ruler of some land, a king, or simply somebody that has a lot of power or wealth and can control the masses. Then the next lifetime, you'll be one of those people that's controlled and poor. Then the third lifetime, which might be this lifetime, you're integrating and seeing both points of view. You may have some power, but you don't use it in a negative way. You may not have as much as you want, but you can accept that whatever you have as okay for that life. So you integrate both of those points of view. And there's a lot of um, different types of, I mean, Earth is the place where you experience duality, you experience polar opposites. So, and to take advantage of that, you want to experience all different points of view. You could be the perpetrator of trauma. I know nobody wants to hear that they've hurt other people in their past lives. Um, but we all have, because when we come here, we've forgotten that what we really are as our souls. We're spirit. We're all one. We can't experience perpetrating trauma on another person there and experience being traumatized. But we can do that on earth, and we can learn a great deal from it. We can learn that we do not choose that. We choose to be spirit. We choose to be one with others. A lot of past lives have to do with loneliness and abandonment. And they will be shown lives where they were alone or abandoned by their parent, or simply could not connect with anyone in a meaningful way. But they will also experience another life in which they had a very close family, great relationships, great community relationships where they were able to connect with people, help people. And that way they can learn both sides of it. A lot of people are learning that in this life, are learning to have connection in this life, because it seems like a lot of people come to me with these types of loneliness and abandonment issues. And they're learning to overcome that in this life by learning how to communicate and connect. Another example, and I have so many examples of these. Another example is somebody came to me that was trying to write a book, but was so scared of publishing it that she needed to figure out what was the blockage. Well, she actually had a couple of lifetimes in which uh, there was one, I think it was the 1500s. She was doing scientific research and published these findings and was telling people about it, and she ended up being jailed because it ran against the religious beliefs. Um, and in another lifetime, she was a Black woman that published a book. She had to publish under a white man's name and pretend to be a white man. And when people found out, I can't remember what happened to her as a result of that, but it wasn't good, whatever it was. So in this lifetime, she's resolving that fear, and has actually published a book and has let go of that fear from those lifetimes. Okay, so that's one example. Or or one type of lifetime. Sometimes people come to me with repressed memories and want to know what happened that during that time that they can't remember. And I can take them through this lifetime and have them recall it and resolve it and understand it and look at it from a different point of view. And sometimes people come hoping that they're recalling a past life, but they end up recalling repressed memories they didn't even know they had. So that's another thing that can happen with past life regression. I had actually two people come to me that knew they had been abducted by aliens and wanted to remember that experience. Unfortunately, they weren't able to recall a whole lot of that experience, maybe a little bit more than they did before, but not a whole lot. I think there had to be some kind of memory blockage as far as that was imposed upon them that I don't pretend to understand. And as I said, sometimes they go to other planets, which are very different from the Earth. Sometimes, and doesn't happen very often, but I've heard about it from other people that have past life regressed people. Sometimes you'll get a metaphorical life. In other words, a life that you haven't lived. And it might be in a cartoon form or something. It's just simply to show you some teaching that you need to learn to look at. Maybe it's a life, and maybe it just comes from lifetimes you're not ready to recall yet, because there are those that you're not ready to recall and integrate with this life. There's um, a lot of times people will come to me saying, "Well, I want to figure out why I can't lose weight in this lifetime. What happened in another lifetime?" And it turns out that there wasn't anything that she recalled in this life and another lifetime, but she went to something else entirely, that some other issue that she didn't really know that she needed to work on, that gave her some insight into it. Uh, a lot of people come because they have fears that are unresolved. One particular example that stands out in my mind is this woman. Well, this woman came to me. She really was just interested in past life regression. She just wanted to see what would happen. She didn't feel like she had any particular fears, but she recalled going off of a bridge in the 20s, going off a bridge in a car. In those days, there weren't any safeguards along the roads. There weren't guardrails on the bridges. There were just bridges. And the car went off the bridge into some deep water. She couldn't escape, and she died. And she remembered for a long time. The only memory she had was all this green surrounding her with this cloudy green, and she couldn't remember anything else. But it turns out that that's when the car went under the water. And she said afterwards, she said, I've always been scared of bridges. I will not go over bridges. I will go as far as I can to avoid bridges. And this really explains that. And now she can go over bridges. So that's a really simple one. Uh, Sometimes diseases and just mysterious pains can be resolved by recalling a past life. Uh, there was one where a person got, I don't remember if it was a male or female having this recall, but the recall was of a man with a chain, a one of those buckles or whatever you call it, a steel buckle around his neck, and he was chained with his arms and his legs, and he was just so angry at being imprisoned and chained that he got it dug into the back of his neck, and he would get headaches from that, migraines from the back of his neck from that. And I can't say that the migraines went away, but they were definitely ameliorated after that recall. There was probably other reasons why he had get the migraines as well, but this really this really helped him to recall that. Um, Sometimes people will have scars on their body, or not scars, birthmarks that represent where there was trauma in a lifetime. For instance, a man that was shot with an arrow and killed right here had a birthmark right here. And that explained that birthmark. Those are just kind of simple examples. You probably all heard those particular ones. And there's also times when somebody will come and recall a past life simply to bring forth talents, abilities, just as reminders that they are capable in certain ways and bring those qualities to this life. If you can remember that you've, uh, for instance, been a speaker, somebody of power in another life, then you can certainly be a speaker in this life. If you can bring forth and just imagine bringing forth those particular qualities. There's a lot of examples like that. Now, I've also had people that have, and this is rare, uh, recalled more than 3 lives. I've had people that have recalled 6 or 8 lives. One person recalled 17 lives in his session. He just kind of skipped from one to the next, to the next, to the next. I don't remember exactly why that happened. We did discuss that, and there was some learnings from that. I can't remember what it was. I'm just letting you know that there are so many different things that can happen in a past life regression. I want to stop here for a moment before I go further and see if you have any questions. See if there's something you want to ask about further. Maddie? Let go with Maddie and then you. Okay.
Do some of the past lives ever come through your dreams?
Yeah, some people have dreams. There are some people that come to me because they have specific dreams about um, uh, certain aspects of a past life and they want to explore it. Now, not always do they go to that past life. They may go to another past life that their higher self wants them to bring forth first before they can understand that one. But yeah, a lot of people do. And I've had instances where I've spontaneously recalled things. Like when I was younger, I would spontaneously call certain things that I didn't know what they were. And I didn't understand until I started reading about past life regression and reincarnation. So, absolutely, yes. And what was your question?
I was just wondering about a time frame. How long does it take usually for a person to get to that place where they live?
It is very individual, very individual. I've had people that uh, before I was finished getting them into that state, they spontaneously started recalling an entire life and just went through detail after detail. It was like watching a movie. That's the extreme. Uh, and other people that get into it easily, but I still have to ask questions, and we kind of skip around to different areas of the lifetime. Other people take a bit longer, and truthfully, I've never timed it. Uh, 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe. It could be that long. I don't, I never look at a clock. And quite frankly, I'm kind of in a trancy state. And if I met this person a week later, I would remember the person, but I wouldn't remember what they had recalled. I take copious notes and I give people copies of my notes and I let them record it if they want. Yeah.
Have you ever done anything to like prove the accuracy of something past?
That's one thing I was going to talk about later, but I can talk about it right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, I personally have done a couple of things, and I'll tell you about those. I always ask the date if they see a date. Most people can see like it was 1800s or this was like thousands of years ago. Most people can see at least that. Some people immediately dates pop into their head. I always ask their names and the names of the significant people in those lives. Some people come up with a first and last name immediately and the names of all the other people. Some people come up with specific places and events, historical events. Other people can't really say. They just say, "Oh, this is like a long time ago," or I'm not sure. But the people that do come up with these names and dates have researched them, and I haven't heard back from all of them. I don't always follow up, but there was one person I remember in particular that went back to a war in the early 1900s in one of the Balkan states. It was a different name of a country then. She described a war. She had her name. She had a date. She was able to look all that up, um, and that did a lot of verification for her. Uh, Now I'll tell you what I've done. My two of my lives that uh, there are like 4 or 5 lives that significantly impact this life that I've recalled. I've had to go back to several times because I couldn't process everything at once. But one of those lives was as a nun in Italy in the 1800s. And I've recalled that several times. I remember very specific details about where I was in Italy. I had this sense that I couldn't remember the name of the town, but I remembered that it was on the southern coast. There were cliffs on near where I lived. It was on the western side toward the south in Italy. I didn't know that there were cliffs in Italy until I had this recall. Um, but I remembered the way the town looked. There was a little nunnery in that town. I remember what the buildings looked like. I remembered it was a short walk to the coast where there were some steps that were carved into that cliff and a little grotto inside that cliff that had a statue of Mother Mary in it. And I would go there every day and for two reasons. One, to cool off because it was really hot in the clothes I had to wear and in southern Italy. And when I kneeled down on that cool stone, it felt so good. And I felt the breeze coming in, felt so good. But I also remember I communing with Mother Mary and Jesus and how good that felt and how wonderfully wonderful. It was just a wonderful spiritual time. That was very vivid. Now, uh, about 15 years ago, I got the idea to look up on Google Earth when Google Earth came out. I can look and see if I can find this place because you can see a lot of details. I spent hours searching that coast, and damned if I didn't find it. I saw that grotto. I saw the steps leading down to it. It was right where I thought it would be. I looked at the little town above, and it had a nunnery in it, and the buildings were just like I remembered. Now, if that's not confirmation, I don't know what is. That was amazing. And to this day, I wish I had done a screenshot of that and or wrote down the name of the town or something because it was some long Italian name I couldn't pronounce or couldn't spell or because I haven't been able to find it since then. I mean, it took me hours to find it the first time. I just haven't been able to. This I'm wondering if they just took down the nunnery and developed the whole area. That's what I'm thinking that because there's so many resort towns along there. I discovered another lifetime. I did the Google Earth thing again. Another lifetime was in Ireland. It felt like it was on the southeast coast at a point where these big cliffs again, and that's why they were easy to find on Google Earth because these are easy features to look for. If it's inland, if it's going to be really hard to discover. There's too much ground to cover. But I remembered that like, where it was, I remember that if you walk down to the north, you could go down the coast and down to a little seaport town. I saw this big pier coming out and some bars and stuff that I used to visit. Um, but I remember that cliff, and I remember our house was just a 20-minute, half-mile walk or mile walk from the town and from that point. But I remember jumping off that cliff and killing myself. And I remembered that I thought it was because it turns out in a later recall that's not the reason was different that I ended up killing myself. My husband went out to sea on a whaling trip or a fishing trip or something, and he never came back. And I had a little baby at that time that I had to raise, and I raised her till she was 5. But the reason I jumped off the cliff was because I went crazy. I'm kind of wondering if it was schizophrenia that was developing, because I now know I've got a lot of family that's schizophrenic and I know a lot about it at this point. But it was fascinating to make that recall because at the same time I was having these hallucinations and delusions, my myself as Barbara could see what was really happening, which was not what was happening. But I knew that I was going crazy and I couldn't take care of my daughter. So I left her in the hands of my mother at that time and killed myself. Um, and my mother at that time happened to be my best friend in this life, and she recalled the same things and she added to that story, which was very interesting. Another interesting thing is my daughter in that life is my daughter in this life. She's adopted and she's got mental disorders herself. And this, when she was very young, she used to ask me, Mom, are you going to kill yourself? And I couldn't figure out where this was coming from. She asked me this several times when she was very little. But I mean, I said, no, I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with you. I'm happy with your dad. I'm happy with where our house. I'm happy with everything. I'm not going to kill myself. Why are you asking? I don't know. I'm just afraid you're going to kill yourself. And that's to me, that's more evidence right there. But what I was leading to is that I looked on Google Earth for that particular cliff. It took me a little while, but not quite as long because the features were, since I knew it was southeastern Ireland, right on that coast there, and I knew there was a seaport town there. I I was able to find that too. It looked exactly the same as I remember. And I've never been to Ireland. I've never looked at Google Earth, Ireland on Google Earth. But so those are two evidences for me in particular. If other people have done it, I don't know, but I have heard a lot of people talk about being able to find historical evidence for certain things. So, did I answer that question?
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of lifetimes that are recalled that you just don't have enough evidence. And to me, the evidence, and I'm not sure that I believe that everything I've recalled is a past life. I wonder if it's just something my higher self wanted me to see to help me understand myself better. Um, but there are some lifetimes that just because of the fact I felt like a different person, I had a different personality. I looked at things differently. I felt things differently. Um, uh, for instance, I was a man in the Middle Ages. I can't pinpoint the year. King Arthur always keeps coming up in my mind, so it was something somewhere around those times. But I was big. I was very muscular. I had red hair all over my body. I saw women as inferior to men and should do everything I say. I mean, I had a wife who I could see with Barbara's eyes, she was really intimidated by me, and she felt like, oh yeah, I've got to do everything he says. I got to take care of him. And I would be gone for interminable amount of times, away fighting wars, whatever I was doing. Um, and I would come back, and once I came back with an injury to one of my legs, and she had to take care of me, and I was ordering her around, and I remember feeling that man's feelings that this is proper, this is right, this is what you do as a man, as I provide for the family. I didn't care at all that she had to do all this work raising her kids, raising our kids on her own and somehow figure out how to feed everybody, keep up the house, um, and do everything while I was gone. I didn't even give a thought about that. Now, to me, that feels like evidence because I've never felt that feeling before. What it feels like to be another personality in a different body. It felt very powerful. Now, I have had lifetimes where I've been in the opposite, where I have felt, uh, well, what pops into my head is a lifetime I had as a deformed little girl. One of my legs and one of my arms was deformed. I limped. My face, well, I think my whole left side was deformed. Uh, my face was deformed. I lived in this castle or something where nobody really cared about me at all. Everybody thought I was just like a pet. And so they used me in every way they could think of. I helped in the kitchens. The most demeaning thing that happened to me was I was actually used as a warmer for the kings or whoever the lord was of that manor. Along, it was in the Middle Ages also. I was used to warm his feet at night under the covers, so I had to sleep under the covers with his feet on me. I didn't have a very long life, thankfully, but I did I did have happy moments. I was not at all smart. I was very, very stupid. And that kind of helped ameliorate things because I couldn't see any life other than that. I actually felt like I was inferior. I just felt like, okay, I should be used. I felt that way. But my happiest moment was when I had to do errands between manors, houses, castles, whatever. I don't know what errands I was doing, but I would stop on this bridge at certain times of day and watch the light bounce off the sparkly water. And I would just gaze at that, and that would make me so happy. And to this day in this life, I love watching sparkly water and sparkly things. It's just I've got sparkly things on, and so it's so that was like the opposite. And so it's really interesting how that plays out. But everybody has to have these limited lives, these power lives, so that they can see things from different points of view. Did you have another question?
What's the what?
I'm sorry, what?
So it's stuff.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
here's one more thing. Do you have anything to offer as far as life between lives?
No, I don't do that. Now, I have often felt the urge to go take that course to learn how to get people in a deeper state of hypnosis because it does take a long time. I've heard that those sessions are like 4 hours long. And I've felt the urge, but for one thing, I've never had the money to do that. For another thing, I also feel this opposite urge. No, that's not what you're supposed to do right now. You're supposed to just be offering past life regressions to people. Just what I've been doing, and Reiki and some shamanic things I do as well. So that's all I felt the calling to do. But yeah, that I'd love to do that sometime. I've I keep thinking, okay, I'll do that. Eventually, I'll get there. But oh, I'm sorry.
Have you ever encountered anyone that has reincarnated through the same bloodline from generation to generation to generation?
Um, I haven't personally, but I have in the life readings that I have read. I haven't read all the life readings, but my mom did, and she talked about things like that. Yeah, there that does happen. It does happen. I don't know if I can give you any specific examples of that or not. I think it did happen in my family. Um, my ancestors are all Southerners that had slaves, and let's see, I know my brother was one of those slaves at one point. Uh, but that's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, it does happen. Other questions? Yeah,
How long is it before you reincarnate to another life?
that varies also.
Yeah.
It's in the what Dr. John used to say in the past, and in those books, it'll say um, usually you'll have one life per century, or maybe two lives per century if they're short, because lives are getting longer and longer and longer. Um, uh, but I have found in my recall, that's what has happened to me basically. But there needs to be some time in between. Um, okay, so some of the things I haven't gotten to yet. That let me get to it now. Is that all the past life regression I've done has really underscored, enforced, and brought some things to light that the teachings that Dr. John taught. And one of these things that he taught, which other people teach now, is that the soul is humongous. It is so much bigger than we can imagine. We only incarnate part a small portion of our souls at any one given time. Did cards drop? Hmm, that's weird. Um, so the rest of the soul is doing other things and also helping guide us through this lifetime. So when we pass on, we have to integrate that life. Everybody's heard about doing a life review after. They talk about this in just about any books that go into the afterlife. There's always a life review, and sometimes people can recall doing that, and there has to be some kind of integrative process um, and planning for the next life because it's difficult. It would be difficult for the soul to have more than one life at one time, although it does happen. especially he says in the case of identical twins, that's usually the same soul having parallel lives together. That's why there's so much have so many things in common and can almost be telepathic with each other. But maybe they are completely telepathic. I don't know. I've heard some stories, but okay. Does that answer that question?
Just yeah,
Yeah.
centuries. And
It could be a long time or it could be quick time.
what's the quickest you've heard?
The quickest that I've heard um, is fairly right away, just like a few years or maybe even less than a few years, maybe immediately. Um, Dr. John talks about World War II, people that were killed in World War II coming back fairly quickly. And a lot of the people that protested Vietnam in the 60s were World War II people that got killed. They came back so quickly they hadn't processed everything completely, but they wanted to be on the other side and protest war. So I don't know if I explained that well, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes when a child is born, we see traits of someone that passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that could be too. Yeah. I can't attest to that fact, but I've seen and I've heard from various mediums that for instance, my grandmother is and grandfather are now sister and brother for my cousin's grandkids. I heard that from a medium, and it makes sense because there are a lot of traits. So yeah, that kind of answers that further that question. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. Okay, did you have a question? Or did you have a question?
Me?
I thought I saw a hand raise over there somewhere.
Well, I mean, I was like, part of this is interesting because could ask this question like, what is time? You know, so we see time in a certain progression, but in the spirit realm, we could jump into eternity, you know, so it's like time is irrelevant in that sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
And even like not like Lord or Shoal or having traits and so forth, you know, like I know my daughter could see like there's certain facial expressions that I would make and it's like see her making the same expression. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah, I find myself doing what my mom does.
a
Yeah.
larger body, a larger soul, like you said.
Hmm.
Ultimately we are all one.
Yeah.
When we're in the realm of time, we intimately separate.
Yep.
So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've often wondered. I don't wonder too much because it just it's too much for my brain. But
right.
I'd get nowhere with it. But that one person that recalled 17 lives, a lot of them were at the same time, parallel. And I wonder if there are parallel. Sure there must be parallel realities. People talk about it all the time, and quantum physics underscores that the possibility. And perhaps people do jump timelines in that respect. I don't worry about that because it's too much. But I wonder if that's what was happening in that particular case. I don't know.
that just reminded me, and I can't, it's not coming to me, but the fellow who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, that is the planet.
Oh yeah.
Then he talks about that.
Oh, he does. I hadn't read that book since the 70s. I still have it.
When he talks about flying and all of a sudden he's doing something else and there's other, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
other
so it's
dimensions.
just like, and it sounds like hallucinations, but then who knows?
Yeah. I often wonder about schizophrenia. The hallucinations they have if they're from a parallel reality. This is a different topic, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. But I've known several people that two of them in my family that were schizophrenic, and they were the most intelligent people, and the types of hallucinations they had really made sense. Um, I kind of wonder about that. I've talked with my sister, who's a psychologist. I've talked with her about it. Her son is one of those that's schizophrenic. I've talked with her about that. And my best friend, whose son was also schizophrenic, we've talked about that as well. So it's very interesting. Yeah. But that's another topic altogether. One that I cannot speak about because I'm a psychologist or a quantum physicist. So, all right. So any other questions before I move on?
a soul decide whether they want to come back or they die?
Absolutely. It's all about free will. A lot of souls do come back, even though Earth living is about the hardest thing you can do. You hear this from every meeting that Earth is the hardest place to be, but it is the fast. It's like getting a PhD in experience because the Earth offers so many experiences based because we experience ourselves as separate, and that offers so many different learning opportunities. We have duality here, which just offers so many different learning experiences. And despite the fact that it's can be awful, uncomfortable, horrible, and makes you not want to come back, it's incredible learning. So a lot of people will elect those experiences just because of the learning and growth that it can give you. So yeah, that's a good question. I know people that tell me I'm not coming back at all, and I'm thinking, maybe you won't. You have that choice. But I never tell them, you might decide when you're sold to come back and learn more. Uh, but no, it's all choice. You do what you want, basically.
Do you think that they want their soul to learn more because of the progression in heaven?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not prepared to speak on that because I know what I think I know, but I'm not an authority. I don't recall being up there. Although when I channel, I do go up to some higher realms that are, oh my God, I want to stay there. I really do because I feel the oneness and the love. And it's just awesome. If everybody could do that, there would be no wars, no fighting. People would be understanding of each other. And it's wonderful. I can see why people wouldn't want to come back. Yeah.
I think we have a modern day corollary to help us to understand. I think as we advance more technologically, it's easier to accept certain principles and concepts. The great movie, of course, is The Matrix, which
Oh yeah.
you know, but that's asking deep philosophical questions as what is reality, what's time,
Yeah.
what you perceive as being real, is it real, and so forth. Because even like within video games, it's like you can respawn, so you can say that as being reincarnated, and so forth. So we have no trouble accepting these. Like we can even be plopped into like another time, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and so forth. And so
Yeah.
we can go around this environment and experience this thing. So is it real or is it not? Well, it's virtual world, but yet you are responding in real ways
Yeah.
to the virtual world. So you can make an analogy between this life as to you're experiencing these things when you talk about past life. Well, that's just like another level that you were dropped into your consciousness was dropped into to have these experiences to help your soul develop.
Yeah. 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 It's very interesting. It's a lot easier nowadays to understand these concepts than it was a long time ago. We had no frame of reference for getting out of our own selves and experiencing what it was like to be another person.
And I think the media is now seeing that because you see
Yeah.
on TV some of the shows and
Oh yeah.
that movies,
Oh yeah. A
that
lot
are
of it.
opening that up to masses. So
Absolutely.
people are more receptive.
Yep. Absolutely.
Can you prepare in this lifetime what you want to do in the next life?
Sure you can. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to be a doctor in the next lifetime, but I feel like also it's going to be very very different by the time I incarnate again. That the power elite, so to speak, will not be in control of medicine at that point, and they'll be able to incorporate holistic methods uh, like herbs and Reiki, and I mean, there's so many out there. So I feel like that's what I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be a male. I'm not. It's not that I'm looking forward to it. I just feel like this life has prepared me for it because I've learned so much botany, and I've learned so much about holistic healing methods, and uh, I feel like I feel like my soul wants to do that. So yeah, absolutely. I think you're preparing every life for the next life. And even more now so that we're more aware of what we're doing. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. Is there another question? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, have you ever like recognized somebody that you never met before?
Say that again. What?
Have you ever like read?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah,
You know you never. Yeah, they.
yeah.
No, you do.
Oh yeah. Quite a number of times.
Would you say that that's just? Would you say that's the possible people like former life?
Yeah. Well, another thing that probably most of you, or maybe all of you, have heard of is cosmic families. There are soul families that are what they incarnate together a lot to help each other. They make soul contracts before this life in order to perform certain roles in each other's lives so that they can learn. And if you've known one of these, known somebody else in another cosmic realm or in another life, it's more easy to recognize them in this life. And it doesn't mean that they have to be somebody that you like or get along with. It could be somebody that's in an antagonistic position to help push you to grow in certain ways. Like that boss you that just is nasty to you. He could be in your soul family pushing you to excel more and to be more of who you are capable of being. Might not be in a very nice way, but that might be the way that you chose to learn. So there's a lot of different after my husband died, I met this guy, totally toxic for me, but I was so drawn to him, and I did. I discovered that at that time my mom was still alive, and we were doing a lot of past life regression. I recalled so many lives. I think I knew that guy as a soul better than anybody I've known in this life. I had so many lifetimes. I've called like 10 lifetimes with him. Some very major. He was in some of my very major lifetimes. Um, and I recognized him, and he recognized me even more quickly. I think probably because he was from the feminine half of his soul, and I was from from the masculine half of my soul. One of the things I didn't say is that part of the duality experience is that a soul will divide into a masculine and feminine half just for the purposes of incarnation. They operate as whole souls in the other realms, the afterlife. Um, and uh, each half of the soul, the masculine half, has to experience both masculine and feminine lives. Um, so I'm, I've been on this earth a long time. I've lived a lot of lives, so I function very easily as masculine and feminine. But it takes a lot of lifetimes to be able to do that. Um, I don't like the word older and younger souls, even though it's because it just pertains to earth living. I think all souls are eternal and have had experiences in other realms and are not necessarily older um, in terms of the earth, but definitely in other realms. I mean, you meet all different kinds of people with all different kinds of understandings. But okay, did I answer your questions? Okay, good. But anyway, I continued this relationship with this very toxic guy because I was so drawn to him. And I finally realized he was one of my major lifetimes. It was the first lifetime I ever recalled. It has major effect on this lifetime more than any other. It explains why I was so shy as a child, why I was afraid of barns, why I was afraid of dogs, why I was afraid of men, period. Scared to death of men, any men. My grandparents, I was scared of my grandfathers. They could not figure out why. It turns out in this lifetime, I was brutally raped and murdered, and hung up to die in a barn by my arms. Um, and I had to recall that lifetime quite a number of times in order to get past it and get the teachings. It was in a barn. That's why I was scared of barns. But I went through it several times, and you don't have to experience things firsthand. You just have to know basically what happened. You don't have to re-experience anything traumatic that you've experienced in past lives. You just have to see it for what it is. and then learn from it and move on. So I've since moved on. It took some work to do, but I did. He was the one, and I didn't recall this till I met him because I recalled this earlier in my 20s, but I didn't meet him till my later 50s. That uh, he was, when I was a little girl, I was thrown out into the streets when my mother died to live in Paris. And I was like 5 or 6 years old. Well, this guy came up and he taught me how to be a prostitute. I remember this vividly. I remember him teaching me vividly. That was, I mean, that was so real. It could have been happening now. Um, but fortunately, I didn't remember the traumatic parts. Now, what happened to lead to that brutal rape and murder of that 16-year-old girl was eventually one of my clients, he sent me clients, beat me up. And I went to my pimp, this guy I knew from this life. Um, his name was Victor. I remember names and everything there. But I went to him, and so he had this guy beat up. Unfortunately, this guy was in something of a mafia type group and had uh, decided that they needed to kill me, get rid of me. And so they did in a very brutal way. And he's the one. So he basically brought about that in this life. Now in this life, that that former lover of mine, uh, I finally realized how toxic he was. In this life, when we were together, I could give him money. I've never done that. I've always been very frugal with money. I gave him a car. I gave him all sorts of things. And I couldn't figure out why am I doing this? And he was taking advantage of it. Like I owed it to him. And of course, that's what I did to that pimp in that life as a prostitute. He basically saved me from the streets. And I was very grateful to him in that life. Um, and I felt like he was saving me in this life. Of course, he wasn't. But finally, when I realized that, I, okay, I got rid of him finally. And he's not that he was a bad guy. He was operating on these forces altogether. I think I contracted with him to do that.
So do you find that through that, is it possible to get, for forgiveness because
Oh yeah, I forgave him right away. It wasn't hard at all. Um, I imagine, because it was in the past. And sometimes I get angry at him for just taking the money and not giving it back. But he's the one that's really suffering in this life. He has 5 daughters. Guess why? Because he needs to learn how to be good to women. And and he's very, very miserable. He's an alcoholic, he's a gambler, he's just experiencing a very miserable life. He recalled with me these past lives and he felt horrible about it. But he didn't really grow from it. It just added to his misery. But I took it as a growth lesson, fortunately. So,
I guess that is the fear of going and regressing because
yeah,
if you cannot see that process happening and do the forgiveness or realize that the contract was before you came into this
yeah.
existence.
And I worked through that. I worked through all that and realized that. But he didn't, I told him that, but he didn't really, he may have gotten it, but he just was so remorseful and feeling so guilty that we don't have contact with each other at all anymore. So, but yeah, I think she raised her hand first. Lisa.
I've read where before we ever are born, we pick this life
Hmm. Yeah,
and for a purpose.
yeah, absolutely.
And that's part of the whole process.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a major learning for my soul. I got to help that little girl, that 16-year-old girl, move on, and I went through the process of helping her move out of that barn to see it for what it was and just have a normal teenage life in the afterlife after that. And that was very, very relieving, fulfilling. I lost my fear of men at that point. Um, it it resolved that whole issue that she was stuck in that barn. She never had an afterlife. She never really followed the light or anything like that, and I helped her to do that. So that's one thing you can do with past lives, and that's one thing I have helped quite a number of people do with certain lives, and it really does help a lot. So I came back to resolve that. I came back for a lot of reasons, actually. Came back. I feel like I came back to resolve all these karmic loose ends that hadn't been because like I told you about my daughter. My daughter doesn't talk to me anymore. Um, but I feel like that is some kind of, it's her life. I'm able to see that as a soul contract that we made before this life. She's experiencing whatever she needs to experience, and I just love her from afar. Um, and resolve that life as I talked about. And the nun life, I it was a good life, except that I felt very frustrated. It was a life of helping people, but I wanted to help people spiritually, but I was not able to bring that spirituality to people. And that's what I'm able to start doing in this life by teaching Reiki and doing past life regression and giving talks like this. So that feels good. That helps that nun that wasn't able to do that.
One of my
Oh yeah, that's a great book.
human icon. But basically, one of the things I learned from me is that anything that causes you pain, for like some people, they'll run from, they'll leave them.
Yeah,
But if something, if you feel that pain is arising with you, there's something there. There's
yeah,
something guiding it for you to learn from and to grow. So what you learn from that process is to face it head on rather than run.
absolutely. Yeah, process it. Yes.
You can see how people deal with that in their life and understand which side of the equation you're on.
And that's one thing, one of the things, I mean, yes, past life regression has helped me solve issues in my life and fears and move forward. But the biggest thing I think that I get from past life regression is seeing that every single personality, whether I like them or not, whether I agree with what they're doing in this life or not, they're following their own path, learning their own lessons. Now, I recently broke up with in a very abusive, narcissistic relationship. I felt like my soul wanted that to learn from it, and as a result, I grew a lot. I less than a year ago is when I got out of the relationship, and I see things in a different perspective now because I chose that learning, and then I let it go. Um, but everybody, my mother, my sister, my friends, this guy's really bad for you. Can't you see that? And I said, yeah, I can see it, but I feel compelled to go through with it. So I did. But when you look at it at that light, everybody has to go through their own experiences, even if they don't look right, even if you disagree with them, even if you think they could follow a better path. They're following the path that they laid out as souls, and they're learning from it and they're doing what they needed to do in this lifetime. And that is seeing the bigger picture. And that is what past life regression, biggest lesson, past life regression has left me with. So, any other questions?
I guess what I was thinking, you just answered, but like this lifetime I'm having, I feel like I'm going through a whole summary of a whole bunch of experiences that I have powered through and became strong.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost like a summary of all these things, and then possibly go into the next life and going up a level, I guess, or I don't know.
I used to think of it as,
Christian more common.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just like to think of it as just adding to your experiences and understanding as a soul, and thereby you're adding to experiences and understandings of God, of everybody, of uh, the universe, whatever you want to think of it as. So you're not just doing it for yourself; you're doing it for everybody. Yeah.
So as far as like people who are interested in this and like next steps, like let's say they dealt with stuff and want to learn more, maybe from your past life or recommendations for how to proceed after.
Well, I give individual past life regressions. I also do group past life regressions. I brought some brochures that tell you about it and some business cards if you're interested in doing a past life regression or maybe getting a group of people together to do a group regression. You will recall some things, but I won't guide you individually, so you won't recall quite as much. An individual regression really gets at the heart of the matter better. But so you can contact me anytime, and the brochures and the cards will tell you how. I also brought some books from religious research. Some of them my mom bought. There, if you want to buy some, I've got copies, but they're in storage. Of that might interest you. That really talks a lot about reincarnation and past lives and what recalling past lives teaches you and just all sorts of things like that. Feel free to look through them, and if I'm selling them all. Yep.
Yeah, I just when you were talking about experiencing life and being, I guess part of it. Well, my thought was, and it's a thought that I've had for a long, long time, is that we are only one entity of God. I mean, I know that God is within me. So therefore, when I experience something, I feel that I'm adding to the whole of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and each of you are adding to the whole of God, which we all are.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's how I encompass the entire picture, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Yes, makes perfect sense. Yes.
So I don't think that we are, I mean, when we talk about God, it's something out there as opposed to being something in here. But when you think of it that way, and I mean, there are times I have to remind myself, oh yeah, that's the whole, And so even though, and I guess that saying about there for the grace of God go I is like really what we all are.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. Yeah, we take on the personality. You know that the body dies, but the personality is simply for this lifetime. Personality, the ego, your emotions, your thoughts. These are all things tools that we use for this particular lifetime that we're given. And we get a new set of all of these things each lifetime so that we can learn a new set of experiences. So what we really are those souls, those spirits that are learning using these tools and then bringing them back to the whole of the soul, the whole of God.
So people who say, or psychologists who say you have to let go of the ego to really experience whatever. I guess I would question that because then how can you be who you are?
Yeah, what the way I look at it is I don't think you ever let go of the whole of your ego because the ego is what makes you think you are separate. And you have to feel separate in order to have these experiences and learn. But you can let go the layers that don't serve you anymore, like the ones that make you feel better than somebody else, or ones that don't make you feel worthy of doing what you want to do, the ones that make you feel like you're not enough or those layers. You can let go of those and still have an ego that helps you operate in this realm.
And so those are the ones that you need to analyze to say, why am I doing that?
Yeah, exactly. You use that ego for that purpose. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that was good thing to bring up, I think. I think it's about noon, but I think there's time for more questions or one more question or whatever you want to do.
Barb, that was fascinating,
Thank you.
formative.
Thanks. I enjoyed so much talking about these things. It's my privilege and pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.